I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places you could be tonight, but you chose to be here with me, and for that I am forever grateful. The return of the Douglas Ducote Show. We have been off the air for a little over 30 days now as we moved across the state and to a new location, and then to build this new studio and get it all set up and running. And we're ready to go and continue to get back out there and give you all the information that you need as a patriot in this country. Also, would like to say happy Halloween. I hope that if you have little ones and they're out trick-or-treating tonight, that they were all safe. If you're in Washington, D.C., and your kids are trick-or-treating, I hope that you stayed away from that big, huge white house that's at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I heard that there's a creepy old man that lives there, and he hands out candy just so he can sniff your kid's hair. So don't go there, stay away from there, keep your kids safe, and hopefully everything will be good to go. Anyhow, we've got a lot to cover tonight, a lot of things to cover that's kind of frightening. And being Halloween night, what a great night to do it. So I want to start off with this. Shortly after former President Donald Trump announced he was running for president, the Democrats and liberals started screaming at the top of their lungs that Trump would land us in a third world war. You all remember that, right? Even after he became the president, and for the next 4 years, they continued this talking point and doubled down on it over and over and over again. CNN, MSNBC, the Democrats, liberals all over the country. Trump's going to get us all killed. That's what they kept saying. Trump will send us to war with North Korea, they said. He will send us to war with China, they said. He will send us to war with Iran. And he will send us to war with Russia. And they did not stop this chant until Joe Biden was elected president. Remember that. Well, regardless of what you think of Donald Trump or not, it is a fact he did not get us into another war. He did get these rogue countries, though, by the way, to fear us with his threats of what would happen if they tried some kind of crazy bullshit. He literally kept in check Russia, North Korea, China, Iran, and terrorist groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Taliban. When I end tonight's show, I want you to ask yourself one question. Why are these same people that said Trump was going to get us all killed in another war silent? They're saying nothing. It's crickets. Why is that? Inquiring minds would love to know. And here's why. Welcome, my friends, to World War III. Yes, you heard me correctly, but just in case, allow me to repeat myself. Welcome to World War III. The United States and our allies in NATO are engaged in a war with Russia. not directly yet, but indirectly, by supplying Ukraine with weapons and ammo to fight off the Russian invasion of their country. Without American and NATO making these supplies available to Ukraine, it would have fallen into Russian hands within days of their initial attack. Now that Russia is losing the war with Ukraine, thousands and thousands of dead Russian troops, and the depletion of their weapons and ammo, Russia has befriended China and North Korea to buy from them weapons and ammo they need so that they continue this fight against Ukraine, which is actually against America and NATO. If that was not bad enough, North Korea has built a nuclear bomb and is currently making an ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile delivery system, to be able to strike into the heart of America. Currently, with what they have, they can strike our West Coast, but they want to go way deeper than that. If that was not bad enough, China is weeks, if not maybe months, away from invading Taiwan. It's going to happen. When is the big question. But this administration has committed ourselves to come to the aid militarily when that happens to Taiwan. Next, you have Iran, on record many times, saying that once they have finished their nuclear bomb, they plan to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. But in the meantime, they are supplying the terrorist group Hamas and Hezbollah with rockets, IEDs, AK-47s, and all the ammo they need to attack Israel. And they've made good on that threat. And here we have Israel fighting for its life, literally, being attacked by both of these terrorist groups and others joining in daily. The Cold War, my friends, is back in full force, thanks to this current administration's incompetence and soft touch towards those that hate America and everything we stand for. This administration gave billions of dollars recently to Iran. This administration gave billions of dollars recently to Palestine, which then went to Hamas. This administration left billions of dollars worth of our military equipment in the hands of the terrorists called the Taliban when we withdrew from Afghanistan. And this administration is hell-bent on keeping our southern borders open, allowing not just illegal aliens to flow into our country, but cartel gang members, drugs, sex trafficking of women and children, and known terrorists that have been caught. Under this administration, we are now our own worst enemy. And that's pretty damn scary. The Pentagon has confirmed that the United States forces in the Middle East region have been attacked at least 13 times over the past week. Putting on Press Secretary Brigadier General Pat Ryder told reporters today that from October 17th through the 24th, U.S. troops were targeted 3 times in Syria and 10 times in Iraq via a mix of one-way attack drones and rockets, all being supplied by Iran. According to The Hill, Department of Defense officials noted Monday that the recent uptick in activity of various terrorist groups targeting U.S. bases in the Middle East had Iranian fingerprints all over it. It's been well documented, and you've heard U.S. officials across the podiums, as well as policy leaders, for years talk about Iran's funding, equipping, guidance, and direction to partners and proxies across the region. A senior defense official said on record. That includes Lebanese Hezbollah, militia groups in Iraq and Syria, as well as the Houthis in Yemen. According to Stars and Stripes, U.S. Central Command indicated that 24 service members so far have suffered injuries during the October 18th drone attack at Al Tafan and Al Asan. On the same day as the drone attacks, an American contractor passed away of what appeared to be a heart attack while running for cover. One of the attacks against U.S. forces also destroyed an aircraft hangar and an airplane. While the Defense Department has not proven the specific identity of the groups that are responsible for the recent 13 attacks against U.S. forces, the Pentagon has made it clear the groups are supported by Iran. We know that the groups conducting these strikes, these attacks, are supported by the Islamic Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Iranian regime. What we are seeing is the prospect of more significant escalation against U.S. forces and personnel across the region in the very near term, writer stated today. We know these groups are Iranian proxy groups. The recent attacks against U.S. forces in the Middle East come after Hamas terrorists carried out brutal attacks against Israel on October 7th, literally kidnapping, killing innocent men, women, and children, and actually going in to childcare centers and beheading Jewish babies. This sparked the war between Israel and Hamas and threatening additional escalations all across the Middle Eastern region. During today's Pentagon press briefing, U.S. officials noted that additional forces have been deployed to the Middle East region, including F-16s from the New Jersey Air National Guard's 119 Expeditionary Fighter Squadron. The arrival of these airmen strengthens our ability to support our allies, coalition, and regional partners as we work together to enhance regional stability and security, Air Force Lieutenant General Alexis Grinchwich stated. We've also sent not one, but two aircraft carrier battle groups and all their ships and submarines to go with them to the Middle East. We've sent B-52 bombers over there, F-15s, F-16s, A-10s, AC-130s. We're building up for a massive support of what's happening with Israel and what Iran may continue to do or do more of, and what Russia's next steps will be. Welcome to the Cold War 2.0. GOP Senators John Brasso, John Connally, Ted Cruz, and Pete Rickens railed against the Biden administration's border policies as migrants continue to enter the U.S. illegally. We have just returned from our southern border, and it is painfully clear that with Joe Biden's open border policy, our country is really at an increased threat for a terrorist attack. The Senate Republican Conference Chairman, during a press conference today, said Border Patrol agents seized immigrants carrying with them explosive devices tailored for terrorism. Following the border trip last Thursday and Friday, Rickens added that the country is opening ourselves for a terrorist attack. Cruz, who has led several groups of lawmakers to Southwest Texas without any Democrats going because they refused to go see it for themselves, they will just push the talking part, points on MSNBC and CNN that our border is secure when we know damn good well it's not. Cruz led several group of lawmakers to Southwest Texas, said Border Patrol agents are frustrated because they're risking their lives catching these dangerous people, and then they turn around and their political supervisors make them let them go into our communities. And the next day, They got back and catch the same people all over again, he said, committing crimes. Minors are often accompanied by older men, and it is unclear whether they are actually related to the child. We know under the Trump administration, when they DNA tested grown men with children, about 30% of them were not related to the kids. Those kids were being sex trafficked by the cartel. You get peripheral treatment if you arrive as a family unit, said Cruz. Meanwhile, Department of Homeland Security, that wasted piece of shit, Maracas, confirmed there are more than 600,000 known people have gotten away at the border this year in 2023. Think about that. Over 600,000 got through and weren't caught. And he said that during a Senate Homeland Committee this morning. The Biden administration recently called on Congress to provide an additional $14 billion in funding for border operations, including for processing, support for state and communities into which migrants have been released, and additional agents. The White House says the money includes funding for transportation, including removal flights and resources for alternatives to detention. It also includes money for non-custodial housing options for those in expedited removal, including facilities with housing, legal services, medical care. However, Republican lawmakers contend Biden's request will only speed up asylum processing without fixing the problem of flowing of migrants by restoring Title 42, which was a COVID-19 era provision that allowed for faster explosion of illegal immigrants. What the Border Patrol tells us is there's no consequences associated with illegally entering the United States. And these criminal organizations are smuggling people and drugs, and they're very smart. They know how to exploit our system. Russo said the Biden administration's goal with the supplemental funding is to provide money to make people come in easier. Border Patrol released over 900,000. I'll repeat that. Border Patrol released over 900,000 illegal immigrants into the interior of the United States in this fiscal year, including more than 150,000 this past September alone. According to data on the Customs and Border Protection's own website, go look it up when you have time and see it for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. The figure does not include any ICE releases or migrants encountered at ports of entry. Those released were primarily given what is known as an NTA/OR, notice to appear on their own recognizance, which is like a slap on the wrist that people get sometimes for jaywalking or some crime that you're not going to take them to jail for. Hey, we're going to give you faith that you're going to show up when you're supposed to. Giving that same information to these people that just came across illegally, you think they're going to show back up? Meanwhile, they're released to the United States with instructions to appear in court, often at a date years into the future. A majority were released under humanitarian parole between October 2022 and January of 2023. As Congress gears up to negotiate a supplemental funding package, GOP lawmakers, including Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, are arguing for a number of changes that ensure tighter border security. It's pretty clear that the supplemental that was set up is just a starting place, McConnell told reporters following the leadership conference weekly luncheon that he held last week. We're going to go over with a fine-tooth comb, as you can see, a lot of passion among our members without having a credible border security provision in there. And we're going to make other changes as well. And Lord, do they need to make other changes as well? One of the things that you have heard me say many, many times over the past 4 years, those of you that watch this show religiously and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday, is we will sadly suffer another 9/11 terrorist type event because of our open borders, because these people that are on the terrorist no watch list cannot get in any other way. They can't come by ship. They can't come by plane. The only option they have is to go to Central or South America or Mexico and come up with the illegals crossing. And they're doing that. The failure of this administration to secure the border, and the simple fact that Democrats refuse to remember our history and therefore will repeat it, is what's about to happen. Well, FBI Director Christopher Wray today warned that the threat of a terrorist attack against Americans has been raised to a, his words, whole other level due to ongoing conflict in the Middle East. The reality is that the terrorism threat has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans inside the United States to a whole other level. Director Wray told lawmakers on the Senate Homeland Security Committee. This is the FBI saying we're in deep shit. Hamas launched a deadly terrorist attack against Israel, as we know, on October 7th, leading to a military response from a U.S. ally. The conflict has been renewed. Concerns in the U.S. that there could be similar terror attacks inspired by Hamas and other terrorist groups, included by domestic and homegrown terrorists. We assess that the actions of Hamas and its allies will serve as an inspiration, the likes of which we haven't seen since ISIS launched its so-called caliphate several years ago, Director Wray said. In just the past week, multiple foreign terrorist organizations had called for attacks against Americans and the West anywhere you can. And they are doing just that. Director Wray warned that the most immediate concern is that individuals or small groups will draw inspiration from the events to attack Americans, including homegrown violent extremists who are inspired by foreign terrorist organizations or by domestic violent extremists who are targeting Muslim or Jewish targets. He cited the arrest of a man in Houston, Texas, who has been studying how to build bombs and had posted support for killing Jews, and the killing of a 6-year-old Muslim boy in Illinois, which Wray said is being investigated as a federal hate crime. We also cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or other foreign terrorist organizations may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here in America on our own land. He also pointed to concerns about threats posted by Hezbollah as well as Iran, which supports both Hamas and Hezbollah, and noted that historians of support of terror and criminal operations, giving it disturbing history, we're keeping a close eye on what impact recent events may have on those groups. Intentions here in the United States and how those intentions might evolve, he said, citing cyber targeting of American interests by Iran and their foes. Director Wray's comments echo those by other agencies. The White House said this week that the Department of Justice and Homeland Security have seen an alarming rise in anti-Semitic incidents and threats against Jewish communities. And Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said this week that the U.S. remains in a heightened threat environment, and recent events reinforce just that. As Israel-Hamas conflict continues, we have seen an increase in reports of threats against Jewish, Muslim, Arab communities and institutions. Lone offenders motivated by a rage of violent ideologies pose the most likely threat. We urge the public to stay vigilant and to promptly report suspicious activities to local law enforcement, the spokesman said in their statement. Now, that being said, we know, and you can see it on their website, that our Border Patrol every week has been encountering, when they go through this group that they catch, people that are on the no-fly list, that our FBI, our CIA, actually it starts with the CIA and then it goes to the FBI, that they're connected with terrorist organizations and therefore they're on a no-fly list, so they can't come to America and kill us. They're catching them on our southern border. Recently, they've caught up to 60 of them. Well, if you got hundreds of thousands of getaways, people that weren't caught, how many of those terrorists do you think, this is a numbers game, my friends, are already here in America waiting to strike? And if you think for 1 second that that's not going to happen, then either you're smoking some good crack or you just woke up from under a rock and you've been hibernating for too many years. I'm telling you, mark my words, what's about to happen in America is going to make what happened on 9/11 look like child's play. Our FBI is warning what's happening. Our Border Patrol is warning what's going to happen. Homeland Security talks out the side of their ass. One hand says, we're about to be attacked. The other hand says, oh, we got the border secure. Depends on how Maracas wakes up that day. You know, and I know what's happening on our border. Only Republican members of Congress are willing to go down there and actually meet with the men and women on the border and go see it firsthand. Democrats have gone down there in their suits and ties, but they don't go on the border. They go to detention centers and make up lies like AOC did under the Trump administration about what all was happening. And we all found out that it was all a bold-faced lie. Remember, Congress lied. Oh, figure that. It's not good. It's not going to get better anytime soon under this administration. In fact, as we move forward, mark my words, it's going to get damn right frightening. So let's now downplay the threat, shall we? Yeah, well, that's exactly what the White House did today. The White House said it couldn't possibly answer whether terrorists had already crossed over the southern border and the ongoing crisis there and increased security threats in the Middle East. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, that wasted piece of shit, made the statement during the White House press briefing earlier today while being pressed by Fox News' Peter Doocy on what FBI Director Christopher Wray has just told us. Mentioning that he said it's a whole new level of terror. We are always concerned about the potential presence of U.S. soil of terrorism coming from overseas. That's something we're always worried about, Kirby said, initially dodging when asked whether the White House is concerned the possibility that terrorists could already be in the country after crossing the border. If you got hundreds of thousands coming across the border and hundreds of thousands that they're not catching, and you are catching known terrorists in the groups that you do catch, it's a no-brainer that there's terrorists that have made it across. Ducey noted a Customs and Border Protection bulletin obtained by Fox News last week, warning staff that the risk of foreign terrorist fighters engaged in the Israel-Hamas conflict could soon be attempting to enter the United States via the southern border. He asked if the White House was feeling any heartburn around that, considering there were 600,000 known getaways across the U.S. border, meaning they were detected but not being able to pick up by the Border Patrol because they don't have enough people to do it. They're stretched too thin. I can't speak to this intelligence report that was leaked to the media, and I won't do that, Kirby said. I can tell you that we're constantly monitoring as best we can all ports of entry to the country for the potential arrival of anybody who might wish to do us harm, Kirby said before calling on Congress to pass a supplemental border funding package recently requested by the Biden administration, completely dodging the question. We're not talking about the ports of entry, you idiot. They can't come through the ports of entry, you idiot. They will be picked up immediately. But they can come across the southern border on foot, and they are. But if the general gist of your question is, are we taking the potential threat seriously? Of course we are, he said. Ducey responded that the grits of the question was whether it was possible somebody wanting to commit a terrorist act in the U.S. during a time of elevated threat had already crossed the southern border. I couldn't possibly answer that question, Peter. All I can do is tell you that we remain vigilant to that potential threat, Kirby said. John Kirby, what a absolute useless piece of garbage working in this administration. He's one of many that just don't get it, that want to paint a pretty picture around shit. The FBI director, Christopher Wray, who I've been very, very critical of, and you all know that, I've called him out on many things. I don't like the man, but he's telling you the truth. We have a problem. We have terrorist cells in America waiting for their opportunity to strike. And this administration doesn't seem to give a shit. So if that all wasn't bad enough, if Russia threatening to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine and Iran threatening to use nuclear weapons against Israel and us, and North Korea threatening to use nuclear weapons against us, and China, who has nuclear weapons, siding with Russia on this Israel deal, and North Korea and China giving Russia arms and ammo to continue their fight, and constantly people in Russia, in their administration, coming out and making threats for using nuclear weapons to end this conflict over there. And if you don't know this, if that happens, even if it's just a small tactical nuke, it's over with. When one goes out and hits an ally of ours, we will strike back. That's how it's set up. And when that happens, they start flying, and that's it, folks. It's the end of the world as you know it. The Defense Department announced just last Friday that it is pursuing the development of a nuclear bomb that is 24 times more powerful than the one used on Japan in World War II. Now, let me stop for a second and explain this if you don't know this already. There are enough nuclear weapons in our arsenal to completely destroy planet Earth and everything living on it. The same goes for Russia. The same goes for China. And it's about to be that way for North Korea and Iran. Okay? So we have enough to destroy the world. So let's start this over again. The Defense Department announced last Friday that it is pursuing and developing a nuclear bomb that is 24 times more powerful than the one used in World War II. According to a Pentagon press release, the military working towards a modern variant of the B-61 nuclear gravity bomb called the B-61-13, but the initiative is awaiting congressional authority and appropriation. Today's announcement is reflective of a changing security environment and growing threats from potential adversities, said Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy, John Plum. The United States has a responsibility to continue to assess and fill the capabilities we need to credibly deter and, if necessary, respond to strategic attacks and assure our allies. The Pentagon said the B-61-13 would be deliverable by modern aircraft, strengthening deterrence of adversities and assured of allies and partners by providing the president with additional options against certain hardened and large area military targets. The new bomb would replace some of the B-61-7s that are currently in the United States nuclear stockpile. Pentagon's fact sheet on the B-61 variant development explains that the B-61-13 will be similar to the B-61-7, which has a load 24 times larger than the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima in World War II. The B-61-13 represents a reasonable step to manage the challenges of a highly dynamic security environment, Plum said. While it provides us with additional flexibility, production of the B-61-13 will not increase the overall numbers of weapons in our nuclear stockpile. Well, I'm not a brain surgeon, but how is that possible? The Defense Department noted that the initiative has been under review and considered now for several months and is not a response to any specific current event. It reflects an ongoing assessment of the changing security environment, the department said. In September, a Russian state television station threatened nuclear strikes against the United States in response to U.S. involvement in the war between Russia and Ukraine. Making an appearance on the Russian One channel, Igor Korotsky, editor of the National Defense newspaper, suggested that unprecedented action could be taken by Russia against the United States using nuclear weapons. The most important message we should send to the Americans is that we will not wage war with you in Europe. And he did this, by the way, on Twitter, on his Twitter account as well. By Anton Gavashko, a Ukrainian internal affairs advisor. Gavashko also stated, in response to your attacks on Russian military or civilian facilities, the first strike will be a preventative limited strike against targets on the territory of the United States of America. Happy Halloween. You need some scary things? That's the world we live in today. Most people are in their little bubble, in their world, going about their day-to-day business, not paying any attention to what's happening in the news, not paying attention to what the White House is doing. Most people don't even know what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, or what's happening with Israel and Hezbollah, what's happening with Iran, North Korea, China. It's right over the top of their heads. And that's okay. Hell, sometimes I wish I didn't know. But I do. And therefore, I have to share that information. I look at all the news reports in the description of this show. When it's over with, you'll be able to see all the places where I get my stories from. You'll be able to see it for yourself and read it for yourself if you'd like to. It's all there. I share it, and then I give you my personal opinion and my personal thoughts on what we're up against. I base that on my education, on my real-world experience, having served 4 combat tours in the United States Army, having been a law enforcement officer. I share my knowledge and the knowledge I get from my peers and my brothers and sisters that I used to serve with that are still serving today, texting me, emailing me, calling me, going, check this shit out, Doug. And I see it, and I look at it, and I think, how is it that our current news media, to include Fox News, doesn't have what it takes to stare into this camera and be honest with you and tell you this is some scary shit? I pray that we don't end this way. Some people look at what's happening in the world and they think, oh, it's biblical. It's the end of civilization. It's the return of Christ. Maybe. I understand. I get what they're talking about. But I don't know. What I do know is what the capabilities are of all of these countries and what they've said and what we're now not doing about it. Regardless if you like Donald Trump or didn't like Donald Trump, at least we have peace. He put all those people that we've talked about tonight into checkmate and scared the shit out of them, literally. They didn't act up, did they? No, they waited till this weak, feeble guy got into office that I don't even think he knows where he's at. You've seen it all over YouTube. You've seen it on the news. The man can fall upstairs, not just downstairs, falling up a set of stairs. He needs to be on a walker. Look, there's nothing against that. But to allow him to continue to go out and say things that are incoherent and things that have nothing to do with reality, and then walk away from the podium and shake hands with the air and confused, not know which way to go, and tripping and falling. You ever watch him walk? He's got to shuffle his feet. He can't take a normal gait step because he will fall. That's what happens when you get old. So what's going to happen to me? So what's going to happen to you? When we get old, that's what happens. Don't let him keep doing this. It's elder abuse as far as I'm concerned. But sadly, what's the option? If the House now that's controlled by the Republican Party, and finally they get a speaker in there, was to do something to impeach him, what replaces it? A laughing hyena. Literally. Kamala Harris is as clueless as he is. But he used to not be that way. He used to be, he told a lot of stories as a senator. I'm sure if any of you followed him, you know some of the shit he said that just wasn't true. I think that's just a politician thing. All of them say shit that's just not true. Outright lie. And folks, when you get up there in age, the last thing you need to have in your possession is the nuclear football, which is the case that goes everywhere the president goes, that gives him the authority to launch a nuclear strike. We've got a guy that, I don't know if it's dementia. I don't know if it's just old age, but Joe Biden is not mentally fit to be leading anything, much less our country. And because of his weakness, which is because of his age, the other countries see that and realize they can do whatever they want because Trump's not there anymore. This guy is. He's made a laughing stock of this country, whether you want to admit it or not. Everywhere he goes, it's pathetic. It's all on TV. It's all there for you to watch and see, liberals and Democrats. For crying out loud, pay attention. We have a man who's mentally not fit to be the president of the United States that is in that position. Now, do I think he's actually the one running this country right now? No. No. There's somebody else doing it. Somebody else is making these dumbass decisions. Who is that person? I don't know. Some people think it's Obama. I doubt that. Hell, as much as I didn't like Obama, I'd welcome that summage back over what we got now. At least he was coherent and he was mentally there. Whether you liked his policies or didn't, and damn, I didn't like 90% of them, but he could think about shit and rational about things, and he could have a conversation that made sense without going off on sniffing little girls' hair and eating ice cream. And the guy can't even ride a bike. He's fallen twice now. Get him off a bike. Why are y'all allowing him to do that? Do you want him to get hurt? He's going to kill himself just walking up and down Air Force One stairs. Why are you allowing him to do that? That's elder abuse. his wife, I hold her responsible for it. Jill Biden, why are you allowing your husband to be a laughing stock of the country and the world? Because we can all see he's mentally not there. And you keep pressing forward. Now, I've said this many times. Those of you that follow me know I've said it many times, and I keep saying it. I do not see Joe Biden making it through the end of his term. Got another year to go before the election, November of next year. And I didn't think he'd make it this far. I mean, I really didn't. But I don't see him making it through until the November election without seriously hurting himself or being removed by the Democrats themselves. Because finally, there are members of the Democrat Party that are realizing this is a problem. Now the world has had the opportunity to see the difference in what Donald Trump did and what Joe Biden is doing. It's like night and day. Regardless of policy, I'm talking about just common damn sense and watching reactions of world leaders by what our leader is saying and doing. And we just continue barreling down that road like a runaway train. And where are all the people that screamed and yelled and hollered about how Donald Trump is going to get us killed, get us in a war with Iran, get us in a war with Russia, get us in a war with North Korea, get us in a war with China? Guess what? That's exactly what this administration has done. And you're where on this? Crickets. Folks, you had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. I'm happy to be back and moving forward with the show. Hope you like the new setup in the studio here. We got a few more things in the near future we're going to be adding. We're also going to be bringing on in 2024, we're going to be doing a lot more interviews like we've done in the past. So I hope you will look forward to seeing that, especially as we get closer to election time. And I hope that whatever you're doing tonight, you're safe and you have a wonderful day tomorrow. And I hope you will tune back in here on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central for another episode of the Douglas Ducote Show. Until then, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and I'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.